All right, so the learning objectives, what are our students going to learn, is something that is a foundational place for this conversation to begin. And I think it's important before we really delve into the nuances of that to say that when we're talking about a remote learning plan, this is something that could last for a 30-minute or hour-long lesson that you're going to give over the course of maybe the 1 or 2 days that you assign that to, a week-long plan. That lesson or plan is pretty flexible in terms of time frame. So if it is limiting your thinking to think that it has to happen in a 30-minute block of time, that's not necessarily how we're talking about that. So this objective, though, is something we're going to carry out, as we talked about, from learning objective all the way to an end product. And so how, Nick, do the standards sort of influence that, what the students are going to learn?
Outstanding. When we think about the learning objective, it's our recommendation that for each one of your remote learning plans, and I appreciate what you said, it doesn't have to be a specific duration. That's up to you, the educator. You do focus on one objective for the entirety of the remote learning plan, moving through from that instruction to process, practice, and product. So identifying what is that skill or standard is really important. The first place you want to start with is that scope and sequence, your district scope and sequence. What is it that you would normally expect students to learn? And so create a remote learning plan around your scope and sequence.
So I can't just take that from Teachers Pay Teachers?
Yeah, that's not what we're promoting here. That's true. No.
Right. No, and I think that there's some value to some of those pieces, but you really need to hold to the standards that your district has laid out as the expectation for you. And the nice thing is once you've established those, then you can pivot and start to turn those into I can statements, right, Nick? And so that's kind of step 2 of this learning objectives phase.
That's exactly right. And so when we think about I can statements, we're talking about the self-assessment. We talked briefly about that before, but the idea here is at the front end of learning, students are going to self-assess. How confident are you that you can do this? And then at the end, they'll self-assess again. So we do that to inform what is it that we're learning in this remote learning plan, and also to serve as a baseline for measuring growth or perceived growth. The process of turning your standard or skill into an I can statement really is turning that academic language, that academic speak of your standard into student-friendly, student-accessible language.
Yeah. And so that's really what we're talking about here. Those 2 parts, establishing those learning objectives are going to drive, as Nick said, what you're going to be learning for the duration of the plan. Stay tuned for our next video here on instruction.